accompanied by corresponding business interests in terms of interest from subscribers?
Well, thank you for the question. Reality is we actually did a very unique methodology of listing. We actually decided to list by introduction, and the primary reason for that is the times of listing. We did not want to introduce a growth stock, which is first of its kind in Nigeria. As you know, many of the banking sectors began to pay dividends immediately, so the country is very used to immediate recognition and benefits of stock investments. There is very little, if to my knowledge, very little, if not none, in terms of growth stock stories. We are the first telecom growth stock to list on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and we said that we will not be paying any dividends at least until the year 2010. So the reason we did it was not primarily to lift the brand recognition. We actually enjoy today the largest brand recognition in our tier segment and the fourth across all operators by independent studies done in this country. So, however, having said that, we have enjoyed not only brand improvement in terms of the recognition in the country, but the people have felt that we brought forth a more moral leadership position by which we are now leading even the incumbent operators and bringing about a fundamental change in the financial community, let alone in the telecommunications community. So we have enjoyed some uplift in the brand awareness and recognition, but we've always had a very strong position in terms of brand awareness, and the tagline, "We speak your language," very well recognized in the Nigerian marketplace in telecom and others.
What exactly is your competitive edge? I mean, you say you're playing in a playing field where you've got 12 competitors. What do you bring to the market that's different?
That's a very good question. Our unique proposition is that we're the only full, true triple play provider in Nigeria. We have a separate market segment focusing on the fixed wireless business, which today most everybody has ignored, and in my opinion continue to ignore, a market segment that we believe will continue to enjoy some good growth in the next 3 to 5 years. We have a 37% leadership position in that market share, which brings you about very solid average revenue per user and a lot lower churn because they use it much more for home applications for both incoming and outgoing calls. We also have a leadership position in the data and the broadband mobility sector. Recently, some of the incumbent operators released their 3G services, but we have been playing in that field for at least 2.5 years, and within that market segment we have multiple products on the entry level, the mid-range, and the high end. And then the third element, which we recently began to participate in, is the mobility national roaming services. If you recall, in early 2007 only, we received a unified access license, which rid us of the handcuffs that we had on our hands by allowing us to compete with the incumbents who had a monopoly on the mobility and the roaming game. Since then, over 75% of every single activations per year that we've had played in the mobility sector. So we do very well in the fixed wireless sector where we've come from. We've played very aggressively, and we're leaders in the broadband sector, and we're doing very well in terms of the mobile growth sector. And for the next 3 years, as we've said when we listed, Starcomms is going to play very aggressively by not only acquiring subscribers, but profitability is going to be a main key driver for our business, which is something other operators are not really looking at. They're only looking to buy subscribers. We do very differently. We acquire subscribers to maintain profitability and grow consistently, not just to make headline numbers.
Well, like I said in the introduction, though, regulators by and large don't seem to be pleased with the performance of telecom operators. Poor service delivery especially is one of the things that's in the spotlight. What are some of the difficulties from your experience in enhancing services?
Well, that's another really good question. Reality is quality of service internationally has been a main driver for customers even to patronize a business. Nigeria was a little bit unique in that in 2001 and 2002, there were only a monopoly at first and shortly followed by a second operator, and then we had a duopoly. And for a period of 5 years, there was a restriction on any other smaller operator to participate in the mobile sector. Two, everybody, in my opinion, underestimated the growth of Nigeria. You have 140 million inhabitants, and to date, even today, after 6 years of telecom growth, we only have less than 26% penetration. So there's tremendous growth, and I think, in fairness to the incumbent operators, they really have tried to do a good job in terms of expanding their networks. But there are some inhibitors in the marketplace we play in. For example, access to Sat3 that's been relatively difficult, which then does not allow ICT penetration to grow. In terms of international outgoing voice traffic and incoming, been a challenge for the country. In terms of having rules and regulations for resource sharing, which recently has been released by the NCC, but it still needs to be enforced. Fiber infrastructure across the country is not really readily available, and the companies who have actually built their own fiber infrastructure to date continue to refuse to share that resource with smaller operators, therefore reducing our ability and other operators' ability to reach rural locations in the country. And then really the last item that I would encourage other operators to look at as an inhibitor to quality is always looking at forward thinking, and the reality is we have seen tremendous growth. We should then look at building at least 3 months headroom in all of the networks in order to accommodate subscribers and make sure that you take a risk in forward investing CapEx in order to maintain quality of service, because that's the only differentiator for consumers, and that's something we pride ourselves on. We've always had, at least in our opinion and in some of the opinion of the poll of consumers across operators, we've had the best network quality in the country, at least in our tier segment and across other segments.
Very, very quickly, where are you planning on heading next? Do you have regional expansion plans in the pipeline?
Well, that's also a good question. I can't really release a lot of our strategic options. As you know, Nigeria is a very small community. But what I can tell you is we will continue to drive our leadership position in the tier segment we play in. And we continue to look at geographic expansions within Nigeria. We will not look at any other outside of Nigeria expansions, at least for the next 12 to 24 months, unless we see that will have value in terms of driving service propositions to our consumers. So our main focus is to drive value for the consumers in Nigeria. We want to be the best in what we do and where we cover better than any other competitor. And in line with that strategy, if geographic expansion outside of Nigeria makes sense, we will look at it. But our main goal is to prove a business case in Nigeria that a small operator that have come in 2002 from 2,000 subscribers to today being the leader with 2 million subscribers plus, we are on the path of success, and we hope that by 2010 we would have proven the business case and that we prove to consumers they deserve the best service possible even in Nigeria. And we want to be competitive across international KPIs in terms of quality of service, value for money, and product delivery.
Well, Maher, a good place to leave it. Let's leave it there. Thanks so much for having joined us this afternoon on Power Lunch.
It's a pleasure to see you, and you're wearing a very nice shirt. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, that's it from Power Lunch for today. We're crossing now to CNBC US for US Squawk Box. CNBC Africa's back, though, at 4 p.m. Central African Time with CNBC Africa Special, exploring the impact of the new acting president and his cabinet on the markets and the broader economy and the African continent as well. Don't miss it.